What if I told you someone could get you to say yes to something without you even realizing you're being persuaded? And no, I'm not talking about some spy or villain from a movie. It could be your coworker, a salesperson, even an influencer you follow online. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on the psychological tactics that are, well, hiding in plain sight, all around us every single day. So, let me ask you this, and be honest. Have you been manipulated today? I know, it's a pretty startling question, right? But it's one we need to ask, because chances are the answer is probably yes. These techniques are just so common and so incredibly subtle that they usually fly completely under our radar. So let's get into it and learn how to spot them. All right, first up, let's talk about commitment and consistency. These tricks play on our deep-seated, almost primal need to be consistent with things we've already said or done. See, once we've said yes to something, even something tiny, our brain just works overtime to stick with that choice. Okay, so these two are kind of like two sides of the same coin. With foot in the door, you start small. A charity worker asks if you have 1 minute to hear about their cause. You say yes, because hey, it's just a minute. But now you're committed, and you're much more likely to say yes to their real request, a donation. The door in the face is the complete opposite. Someone makes a huge, ridiculous request they know you'll refuse. Then they follow up with their smaller, real request. Suddenly, it seems way more reasonable by comparison. It feels like they're compromising with you, but really, that smaller request was their goal all along. And just how powerful is getting that first tiny yes? Well, a landmark study back in 1966 found that people who first agreed to a super small request, like putting a little sign in their window, were a staggering 3 times more likely to later agree to a huge request, putting a giant, ugly billboard on their front lawn. I mean, think about that. That's the power of commitment. And the door-in-the-face technique? Oh yeah, it's just as potent. In a famous 1975 study by Robert Cialdini, researchers asked students to do something pretty outrageous: volunteer to chaperone juvenile delinquents for 2 years. Unsurprisingly, not a single person said yes. But then they followed it up by asking, okay, well, how about just for a single 2-hour trip to the zoo? Acceptance literally jumped from 0 to 50%. Okay, so the next set of tactics we're going to look at are a little different. They don't just target our desire to be consistent. Nope, these prey on something even more fundamental: our hardwired social instincts for trust and belonging. This one's called reciprocity, and it's a social rule that is burned into our DNA. If someone gives you something, you feel this powerful, almost irresistible urge to give something back. You ever wonder why they hand out free samples at Costco? It's not just generosity. They're creating a tiny psychological debt. And it works. The same thing happens when a waiter brings you a mint with the bill. Studies have shown that 1 mint increases tips by about 3%, but 2 mints, that can boost a tip by a whopping 14%. And then there's social proof. This is that powerful, often unconscious feeling we get that if a lot of other people are doing something, it must be the right thing to do. When we're not sure what to do, we look to the crowd for clues. You see a long line outside a restaurant and you immediately think, wow, that place must be good, right? But what if that restaurant actually paid a few people to stand there just to get the line started? It happens. In the digital world, this can get dangerously misleading. A 2023 study found that on Amazon, a shocking 62% of top products had manipulated ratings. We're talking fake reviews, paid for 5-star ratings, the whole shebang. We put our trust in the wisdom of the crowd, but a lot of the time, that crowd is just a paid illusion. Now, let's move on to the tactics that weaponize our brain's love of shortcuts. See, to save energy, our minds are always looking for quick cues to make decisions. And these next two tactics exploit that process by creating a false sense of urgency or respect. Ah, yes, the principle of scarcity. You've seen these phrases 1,000 times. They trigger our primitive fear of missing out, FOMO. Your rational brain might not even really want the item, but the fear of losing the opportunity to have it can be completely overwhelming. The emotional part of your brain just panics and pushes you to buy now before it's gone forever. We are all conditioned from the time we're kids to obey authority. But here's the crazy part. A lot of the time, we don't obey the person, we obey the symbols of authority. The famous Milgram shock experiment showed that 2/3 of people would obey a man in a lab coat even when he told them to do terrible things. We see this today with doctor-recommended products or some self-proclaimed expert on social media. We instinctively trust the uniform or the title, often without ever questioning the person wearing it. Okay, this last tactic is, well, it's different. It's way more personal. it's more insidious, and you don't usually find it in a sales pitch. You find it in our closest relationships. This is the one that can truly make you question everything you know about yourself. The term gaslighting actually comes from a 1944 film where a husband secretly dims the gas lights in his house. Then, when his wife notices, he convinces her she's imagining it all. He's literally trying to make her think she's going crazy. So gaslighting is any behavior where someone systematically undermines your reality. They use phrases like, you're overreacting, or you're just too sensitive, or the absolute classic, that never happened. So how do you spot it? Well, you've got to look for these red flags. Do they consistently deny things you know for a fact happened? Do they call you crazy or constantly question your memory? A really key sign is if you find yourself constantly apologizing, even for things that aren't your fault. Or if you just leave conversations with them feeling profoundly confused and off balance. What they're doing is actively rewriting your shared reality to fit their own narrative. So, after hearing about all of this, what's the best defense? What can you do? It's actually pretty simple, but it's incredibly powerful. Awareness. From a simple sales trick to something as damaging as gaslighting, just knowing these tactics exist is the single most critical step in disarming them. You can't fall for a trick if you see it coming. Your awareness is your armor. And that's the real challenge I want to leave you with. Now that you know the patterns, the phrases, the psychology behind all of this, what are you going to start to notice in your daily life? In the ads you see, in your interactions at work, maybe even in your own home. Now that you know, what will you see differently?